What is a hybrid RIA? That is today's question on the Transition to RIA video series. It is question number 35. Hi, I'm Brad Wales with Transition to RIA, and today's question is, what is a hybrid RIA? Now, the reason I wanted to do a video on this is because this hybrid term gets thrown out there in so many different capacities, whether it's just hybrid by itself or hybrid RIA. And so I did want to do a video to try to kind of walk through at least my interpretation of this, because as you'll see, I'm going to walk through a bunch of different examples where this term hybrid is used out there. And I think it's important to think through what these different scenarios are, because just because you see some, advertisement from some firm, whether it's an RIA or a broker dealer or a custodian or whatever the case may be, a lot of times this hybrid phrase gets thrown around out there. And I would tell you, it seems to be used in a number of different ways. And so I often, when an advisor says to me, well, what do you think about a hybrid solution or a hybrid offering at a particular firm, I always say, well, let's start by making sure we're talking apples to apples here, that we're talking the same language. So if someone does say, oh, a hybrid solution to you, do you, on the receiving end of that, do you know exactly what they are referring to? Because again, as I'm going to walk through some examples here, there's different ways that phrase is used, and not maliciously. I think to some folks it means one thing, and to other folks something else. And like I said, I interpret it the way I do. And so what I want to do on this video is just give you kind of food for thought and walk you through what some of the different ways it's used, so you can make sure you're interpreting it correctly if you do hear it used out there. And like I said, it is used quite frequently, sometimes for market and spin, or to kind of polish up a platform. Let's throw the name hybrid on it and make it maybe sound more different than it actually is. And so again, I wanted to walk through what some of those are. So at its very core, and again, this is my interpretation of it. Someone might give you a different definition, but I think this is universally kind of the thought of universally held belief of what I'm going to talk about here. So at its core, a hybrid solution is basically saying, Mr. and Mrs. Advisor, you're wearing two hats. You are wearing a Series 7 hat under a broker dealer, and you're wearing an investment advisor representative, IAR hat, under an RIA. And for most of you, as I'm going to talk about here, most of you are wearing both of those hats in whatever setting you're at. And I'm going to walk through some examples of what those are. But again, at its core, keep in mind a broker dealer and an RIA are two entirely legally separate entities. Now, you might work with a firm that has both, as I'm going to get into examples of that. But technically, they are different entities with different regulators that oversee them, with different rules and regulations for each. And in most instances, again, advisors wear both hats. Again, you'd be a Series 7 is what affiliates you with a broker dealer. To become an IAR of an RIA typically requires either a 65 or 66, but depending on what state you're in, sometimes there's exclusions. For instance, if you have a CFP, that could meet the requirement, and then you formally still become an IAR registered with that RIA. So again, the term hybrid at its core is this idea that you're kind of operating under two different capacities in theory at the same time. And maybe for some clients, you're only operating wearing this hat, my Series 7 hat. And other clients, maybe I only use a fee-based account solution with them, so I'm wearing my IAR hat. And then some clients maybe have both. You have two accounts for whatever the case may be, and you have a commission account for part of the relationship and a fee-based account for the other part. And so that's where this hybrid idea comes together, that you're under both of these scenarios. And so, like I said, most of you watching this are already arguably in a hybrid situation, whether or not your firm kind of actively uses that terminology. So I did just want to walk through a couple of those examples. And so the first one is if you're at more traditional kind of captive employee broker dealer, a wirehouse type firm. That wirehouse, and we won't pick on any particular wirehouse, but generally, if you're like most advisors there, you're again wearing both of those hats. So that wirehouse firm, we'll pick on the wirehouse firms, has a broker dealer, and they also separately have an RIA. Now, you might think, oh, I'm affiliated with wirehouse firm X, or I work with wirehouse firm X, but technically you're kind of under both of those different legal separate entities. They're corporate, as they say, broker dealer, and they're corporate RIA. So if you're in that wirehouse setting now and you are wearing both of those hats, you have your Series 7, you have your 65, 66, you use commission and fee-based accounts, you are arguably hybrid right now as we speak. So another kind of similar example is advisors that are at independent broker dealers. Again, typically most all of those advisors have their Series 7 with that independent broker dealer's broker dealer, to use the term, and that independent broker dealer typically also has a corporate RIA alongside it, and the advisor are also affiliated with that corporate RIA. So again, a typical example, you could argue that any advisor at an independent broker dealer, and again, we use that, and I'm guilty as charged, we use that term, independent broker dealer, when in fact, almost every independent broker dealer out there is both an independent broker dealer and an independent RIA. And if you're affiliated with that firm, you are operating under both. So arguably, anyone in that capacity could declare themselves a hybrid advisor or operate under a hybrid solution. And then to take that farther, I've even seen, because oftentimes maybe you don't see that terminology used for just a kind of a run-of-the-mill independent broker-dealer relationship, hybrid, even if arguably it is. But I have seen, for instance, one particular firm out there basically took that arrangement. Okay, you're under our broker-dealer, you're under our corporate RIA, and for different reasons, they kind of adjusted the payout for certain advisors. And next thing you know, put a hybrid name on it, even though at the end of the day, it didn't really change the dynamic at all. The advisor was still under the corporate broker dealer and was still under the corporate RIA. And just because you changed a payout arrangement, how does that magically make that a hybrid solution all of a sudden? And so again, it's not any malicious usage of it or ill intent to deceive, but it's just kind of, hey, let's position it one way, and it is what it is. The term hybrid is kind of thrown out there as lot as a great solution. And so again, just keep in mind, just because you're at a wirehouse firm, you're arguably already hybrid. If you're at a independent broker dealer firm, you're arguably already hybrid. And then certainly if they give you some special payout arrangement and even call it hybrid, I guess you could argue you're in that same camp as well. And kind of the interesting thing with those examples I just gave, that wirehouse environment, the independent broker dealer environment, that historically, keep in mind, those firms were, and still are, but were historically a broker-dealer that primarily broker-dealer that also had a corporate RIA alongside it. And so most of the advisors, of course, or all of them, had their Series 7 with the broker-dealer. And to the degree they did any fee-based business, they also operated under the corporate RIA, again, essentially making that hybrid solution. Now, the interesting thing, though, is because of the prevalence of fee-based accounts now in the marketplace and on a going forward basis, that most of these firms, you could argue, have kind of morphed into, the better way to describe them is, they are a RIA that also happens to have a broker-dealer on the side, because many of them now, more than 50% of the assets, the client assets, are in fee-based accounts. And so again, some of the terminology, and I misspoke just a moment ago using this, is when we refer to an independent broker dealer, I think that's just the common phrase used, and we all know what we're talking about. But again, that independent broker dealer is not only a broker dealer, they're a corporate RIA. And not only that, most of them have reached the point where the majority of the assets are actually in the RIA and less is in the broker dealer. But yet we still call them broker dealers or independent broker dealers. So it's interesting how that's morphed. And as that trend continues, more and more go into fee-based, and that's why I'm such a believer in the RIA model. Is any advisors that are either in that employee captive environment or even that independent broker dealer environment is more and more of their practice shifts to fee-based, that RIA model becomes almost effectively what they're doing already. Is they're already shifted into that. They just haven't taken that final step and gained all the benefits of having their own RIA. So a couple quick thoughts just on those arrangements. And then to dive into the actual, or arguably actual, hybrid definition with respect to having your own RIA, in kind of two different ways this is put out there. And I did do a whole separate video talking about how as an advisor, if you want to move into the RIA model, but yet you have a need or a want to still be able to maintain some amount of commission business, whether that's new business on a going forward basis, or simply you have a large part of legacy commission business that you, for multiple different reasons, you might want to hold on to. And an example could that be if maybe a sizable amount of variable annuities, where those are still good solutions for the client and they're just sitting in those variable annuities with that part of their assets, and they're paying a trail. And so you still want a place to kind of accommodate that and receive that trail revenue. And so in the RIA model, that's absolutely an option. And I would tell you that's one of the biggest misconceptions about the model, is that, oh, you have to solely be fee-based. And I would tell you, technically under the RIA itself, if you were to set up your own RIA, technically that is only fee-based. However, you do have the option to set up your arrangement to have an RIA and then essentially kind of alongside it also work with a broker dealer to do commission business, which again brings us back to that hybrid arrangement. So the kind of two typical arrangements on that, again, I did a whole separate video on this. So if this is of interest to you, I go into much more detail on it, but is where you would set up your own RIA. And then for your commission business, you would work with what's commonly referred to as RIA friendly broker dealers. And these are oftentimes specialty broker dealers that literally are in the business of saying, okay, you set up your RIA, you have all the benefits and upside and whatnot of having your own RIA, but we realize you do have a need or a want for a place to put your commission business. And so as the broker dealer, we will raise our hand and we will accommodate that portion of your commission business. And so again, at that point, now you're wearing two hats. You are an IAR under your own RIA, and you have your 7 with this broker dealer kind of on the side. And in that arrangement, that broker dealer itself may or may not use the same custodian that you use for your RIA. Perhaps it happens to be the same, or perhaps you strategically enter into which vendors you're going to work with, so it's the same. But there's also circumstances where it's not the same. And that's the kind of thing I hope advisors think through and understand their options and why one might be worth considering over another. But just know it is possible to set it up that way. And then the other kind of, even more pure hybrid solution, if you will, with having your own RIA, is there are some solutions available out there that you set up your own RIA. You use a custodian, of course, for you have to have a custodian to hold your assets. That custodian themselves has a broker dealer, and you can use that broker dealer for your commission business. And so the difference there versus what I just described is, in that scenario, it is all custodied on the same platform. So both your clients are used to seeing the same statement from the same custodian firm. You're used to the same platform of how you go in and pull up client information or perhaps place trades or things like that. And that's arguably the purest of the hybrid definition of set up your own RIA. And not only can you have commission business, you can use a broker dealer that itself clears through the same platform that your RIA uses for custody services. And so again, I would argue my definition of, if someone says hybrid, they're not referring to that wirehouse setup. They're not referring to that independent broker dealer setup. They're referring to one of these solutions where you have your own RIA and yet you have a BD solution as well. And like I said, there's differences in what those solutions are, and like kind of like everything, there's pros and cons to why you might consider one versus the other. Again, as far as if you want to dive deeper into that, I did do a whole separate video on how you can still have commission business as an RIA. And then again, you have further questions, want to dive deeper. Certainly that's the kind of thing I help advisors with all day long. So would be happy to have that conversation with you. So to wrap up, a couple of takeaways from this. I talked about a lot of what this hybrid terminology applies to, but also want to touch on some of what it doesn't as I jump into the takeaways here. So for starters, if you are a 100% fee-based, 100%, and you start your own RIA and you have no need or desire for any sort of BD solution like we talked about, you are not hybrid at that point, or at least no definition that I have come across of hybrid of that would apply to that. Again, you are 100% fee-based, you're RIA only, you're not wearing multiple hats. Pros and cons to that, I think universally accepted, that is not considered hybrid. That doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing, but just as far as what that terminology is for. Now, likewise, you could be the exact opposite, and you see less and less of this out there. But if you're an advisor, and some would argue you shouldn't even call yourself an advisor, you call yourself a broker, that is 100% commission, no fee-based at all. Generally, in every circumstance there, you only have a Series 7 with a broker dealer. You don't have any sort of RIA relationship, whether that's your own RIA or whether that's the corporate RIA, the broker dealer you're with. And kind of where you might still see this, again, that was pretty prevalent, but back in the days, a lot of folks were 100% commission based and had their Series 7 or the broker dealer, and they weren't doing any fee-based business. You still see it some today. A kind of a typical example might be an advisor that does all fixed income for clients. And that is their sole niche, and they buy fixed income, individual bonds. The compensation to the advisor is that commission. And as those bonds mature, at some point down the line, they reinvest it, generates an additional commission, as it should, because the advisor is helping with how to reinvest those funds. And so that advisor, and again, there's fewer and fewer of those that are solely Series 7. That's not hybrid either, because again, you're not under two different arrangements. You're not wearing two different hats. So just something to keep in mind. A third example of that, and you see kind of more of this, is a lot of RIAs are coming along that some don't even manage the assets. They are solely financial planners, and they might be paid a retainer, so much per year, so much per quarter. You see more and more of a subscription arrangement, which is it's $200 per month, and it's every month. And here's the services I provide you, and we invest your assets over here, and I help you get that set up. But I actually don't manage the assets for you. I'm essentially exclusively a financial planner. That person would not be hybrid either, because while they might have their own RIA that they're probably operated under for that arrangement, they'd have no need for a broker dealer. So they're certainly not wearing both hats. So again, another example where hybrid would not be applicable. And then moving on, like I said, most all of you that are watching this are arguably already in a hybrid arrangement. Whether it's commonly referred to that in your arrangement or not could be debated. Like I said, you typically don't hear hybrid when talking about a wirehouse arrangement, but in theory, because you're under the wirehouse's broker dealer and the wirehouse's RIA, you arguably are hybrid. So just something to be aware of. And then when you do see, the phrase, a hybrid RIA or a hybrid RIA solution, and heck, I even did that on the name of this video is what is a hybrid RIA? Again, oftentimes that's just kind of positioning. I don't want to say market and spin, but it's taking a platform arrangement and calling it something. And again, as I hope you've come to realize from watching this video, it could apply to a lot of different things. So just because you see some advertisement that says, we provide a hybrid solution, I would tell you that doesn't mean anything at face value. You have to actually dig into, okay, what exactly are they referring to when they say hybrid solution? Because like I said, there's a couple different ways you could set that up. And then the final takeaway is, again, just to point out again, if you are an advisor that's currently maybe at an employee model firm or an independent contractor firm, and this RIA model sounds intriguing to you, just know that there is that possible solution where you can have your own RIA and can retain some amount of commission business. And in that regard, no matter how you set it up, if you do retain both of those options, you will be in a hybrid solution at that point. It's just a question of which path do you take, which firm do you work with, or firms, plural. Sometimes, again, depends on the different solutions available. And again, that's a typical thing I help advisors with. So just know the options there. Like I said, check out my video I did on how to retain commission business. I go into much more detail on it if you're interested, and certainly could connect with you to have a conversation as well. So with that, like I said, my name is Brad Wales with Transition to RIA, where I work to help you understand everything there is to know about why and how to transition to the RIA model. So today's conversation, typical type of thing I talk with advisors about is, hey, what is this hybrid thing I hear about, and can I do that? Do I want to do that? And if I do, who are the players involved? Who are the various vendors? And why might I consider one versus the other? And I help advisors walk through all of that. And then when we kind of narrow down what might be the best path, then I can make introductions for them. So, okay, if you want to dive specifically deeper into this firm, with my connections, okay, here, reach out to this person. They'll walk you specifically through how it works. And again, I'm always kind of a neutral sounding board to come back and say, okay, this is how they've explained it to me. Brad, could you walk me back through it? I'm not sure I'm following why they say if I do this, I have to do this. And again, that's a lot of the value I provide to advisors, just really helping them understand how all of this works. So with that, I hope you found value in today's video, and I'll see you on the next one.